First is the verbal wars before the physical ones. I would fight him in the car park for free. One thing that I think separates myself is the fact that I mix intelligence with hard work. It will take more than a human to stop me from where I'm destined to be.
Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Unified champion Anthony Joshua will enter the ring in Cardiff, Wales this weekend as the heavy favourite to beat WBO champion Joseph Parker. Some have suggested it will be easy work for Joshua and he'll get the New Zealander out of there in a couple of rounds. I'm of the view actually though that it will be one of Joshua's toughest fights for a number of reasons. Joseph Parker, he's a fighter entering the prime of his career. He's trained exceptionally hard to get himself into career best shape to face Joshua. We're also now being told that elbow surgery prior to Christmas has Parker hitting harder and faster than he has been in the past 2 years. Joshua himself, he's spoken about the challenge that Parker represents. And because of the enormity of the occasion, he expects Parker to lift his performance by about 30% or so. So he has prepared to face a better version of Joseph Parker, and that's what he may actually get. But there is still no doubting that Anthony Joshua, he remains the favourite. In my view, it's something like 60-40 to Joshua or 55-45. And Parker, in my view, definitely a live underdog in this one. And Joshua, he needs to be on top form to beat him. Right off the bat, one of the key planks to a Joshua win, it starts with the 28-year-old maximising the natural advantages he has over Joseph Parker in both height and reach. So he's 2 inches taller at 6'6", and he has an 82-inch reach, and that's 6 inches more than Joseph Parker's. So Joshua, he needs to box like the bigger man that he is, really tattoo the New Zealander's face with his jab. If he can establish the jab early, fire it out like a piston with regularity, he could well rack up the early rounds without taking too much risk. Dictating the range, it's going to be very important because if Joshua keeps Parker at bay successfully at the end of his jab, it's going to force Parker to try things to close the distance. And in the act of doing so, Parker could well walk on to a right hand or an uppercut. We know Joshua's famous for that uppercut. And it could also force Parker, if he's coming in, getting hit, to think twice about coming in to get his work away. He may have to think twice about doing certain things. Could slow him down or alter his game plan. And we've heard the Parker camp talk about needing to set a fast and frenetic pace for Parker to throw a higher volume of punches from the outset, and that's compared to his previous fights. And that's all well and good saying it, but managing to do it against the taller and rangier Joshua, it's not going to be easy. And this is where I believe patience is a key for Joshua, who doesn't necessarily need to try walk Parker down from the outset. I mean, if Parker does try to force the issue early on, it could be a good thing for Joshua set up in the centre of the ring, let Parker come to him, keep firing that jab in the meantime, and wait for the opportunity to counter. It would also allow him to box within himself and potentially conserve energy. If Anthony Joshua can largely keep Joseph Parker at bay in those early rounds by frustrating him and making him use up a lot of energy, it could well help Joshua dictate the pace in the mid to later rounds. Because yes, I do see this one going into the later rounds, and partly because of Parker's durability, but also, much like Carlos Takam, he'll be a moving target and potentially very elusive at times. But on dictating the pace, Joshua, in all but the Vladimir Klitschko fight, he's been very adept at being able to control the pace and rhythm of his fights. Even in instances like the Takam fight, where he was visibly starting to slow down in those later rounds, the fight was still fought at his pace, and he was able to control the action. One of the things that often gets overlooked when Anthony Joshua is talked about is the level of accuracy in his punches. Compared to many heavyweights, including Joseph Parker, AJ is a more accurate puncher, connecting on more than 1/3 of his shots according to CompuBox, which compares to 23% for Parker. Joshua is also among the top 3 for jabs and power punches landed per round. So maintaining his accuracy in a fight against a durable opponent who has proven they can go 12 rounds will likely be key to helping break Parker down and minimizing the amount of wasted effort, because we have to remember, every time these guys throw a massive power punch that misses, it's a drain on them. So being able to hit your opponent more than they can hit you, it is going to help set you up for a victory. And Anthony Joshua, he has prepared himself well to face Joseph Parker, visibly trimming down in weight to increase his speed and mobility, which he hopes will nullify Parker's speed advantages. AJ claims he will be able to match Parker in the speed department now, but for me, the jury's out on that until the night. It's possible, but I think Parker will be the quicker man on the evening. He's also doubled down on a couple of other areas, saying any suggestion of stamina issues is overstated and that he's prepared to go 12 rounds should it come to that. On stamina, his gas tank will have to be good if Parker looks to fight at a frenetic pace and increase his punch output compared to his previous fights. But as I mentioned earlier, if Joshua is able to dictate the pace of the fight and control the action in the main, he will to some extent be able to moderate his energy reserves. Although in saying that, if he does get in trouble, gets caught like he did it in the Klitschko fight, he may need some time to catch his second wind. In respect of being a 12-round fighter, Joshua has stated he's ready to go the distance if need be, although he does think that a stoppage will come somewhere between the 6th and 8th rounds. But the ability of both men to go the distance, it's not really discussed a lot, nor has their respective experience to do so really been put forward as an influencing factor in the potential result. But one man who's raised the question is BBC boxing pundit Steve Bunce. So he's actually stated he believes Parker has the edge in the experience department, saying as a pro, Parker, what he's done is get an awful lot of rounds in. All 3 of his world title fights have gone the 12-round distance. So he says some of those weren't necessarily that easy, and some of those fights he really had to think. People in the Joshua camp will say Joshua hasn't needed the rounds because he's bashed and smashed people up. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. The guy who's got the better skill set looking at a 12-round fight is without a doubt Parker. Let's get that clear straight away. And Parker himself, he has stated, I've been 12 rounds before, so I'm durable. What we've been working on in the gym will be on display on Fight Night. For me, just because Anthony Joshua hasn't gone 12 doesn't mean that he can't or that he hasn't prepared for that eventuality. But what Bunce's comments do highlight is Joseph Parker has gained some valuable experience through tough fights, and he's proved that he can go the distance. And I agree with Parker to an extent that he has proved his durability to a point. Although it must be said he hasn't faced a puncher like Anthony Joshua yet. If Joshua is to get a stoppage, I don't actually see it being from one punch, but rather an accumulation of shots. And actually, if you look at Anthony Joshua's career, a lot of his stoppages have come from an accumulation of shots. He's just overwhelmed people in a barrage of unanswered punches. And if it does happen, I think it will be in those later rounds, like the 9th round or the 10th round. One of the keys to getting it, in my view, is going to be body work. And that's body work throughout the fight. He's going to need to try slow Joseph Parker down because Parker will be coming in nimble and quick. He'll be moving around. And one of the best ways to slow someone down is to work the body. Slow them down, take them out. That's been proven time and time again in boxing. And in terms of Parker, not really sure we've seen a lot of his previous opposition put his body to the test. Some guys like Andy Ruiz did work it to a point, but they didn't quite have the power punching of an Anthony Joshua. So it will be interesting to see if Anthony Joshua can really make a dent in Joseph Parker's body, slow him down, take some of that quickness away. Another thing key to an Anthony Joshua win is his defense, which in my view is vastly underrated. The connection rate from his opponents is at just 21.6%, which is among the joint best among heavyweights in the game. So it shows he can be slippery, he can be evasive. But it's worth noting though, the other man with the joint lowest connection rate is Joseph Parker, which may be a surprise to some people. So going back to my earlier comment, accuracy will be key for Anthony Joshua, because Parker, he is clearly, from what CompuBox is saying, harder to hit than many would have you believe. And if he's faster and hitting harder, he's going to prove a handful to overcome. So it's all there for Anthony Joshua to do. He's got the tools. Another few days we find out. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.